The elite Air Force pararescuemen thought they were dealing with another pretty face trying to play soldier when everything went catastrophically wrong. The stunning blonde rescue specialist they'd been dismissing for her beauty had just performed an impossible multi-casualty medical evacuation under enemy fire that saved 12 downed airmen while proving that her combat medical skills exceeded anything the Air Force had ever seen. What they didn't know was that the gorgeous woman they'd been treating like a mascot was actually Technical Sergeant Amanda Angel Cross, whose perfect rescue record and life-saving medical expertise were about to rewrite the rules of combat search and rescue while humbling every male airman arrogant enough to judge her by her appearance. Welcome to Silent Hero Stories. Before we begin, tell us in the comments where in the world are you watching from today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be told, hit that subscribe button. Now, let me tell you how we got to this life-saving moment. The Air Force pararescue program represented the most demanding military training in the world, a 2-year crucible that eliminated 90% of candidates before they ever earned the right to wear the maroon beret that identified them as pararescuemen, the elite specialists whose motto that others may live represented their willingness to risk everything to save fellow service members in the most dangerous situations imaginable. Pararescuemen weren't just medics or rescue swimmers or parachutists, they were all three combined into warriors who could insert into any environment on Earth, provide advanced trauma care under combat conditions, and extract wounded personnel from situations that would kill ordinary soldiers. They were trained as combat medics, mountain climbers, scuba divers, parachutists, and survival experts, creating the most versatile rescue specialists in military history. The training pipeline that created pararescuemen was deliberately designed to break candidates physically and mentally, eliminating anyone who couldn't handle the physical punishment, psychological stress, and moral complexity that combat rescue operations demanded. It began with 10 weeks of indoctrination that tested basic military aptitude, followed by combat diving school that eliminated candidates who couldn't handle underwater operations in dangerous conditions. Those who survived underwater training faced the Army Airborne School, where they learned military parachuting that would allow them to insert into combat zones by air. But even completing jump school was just the beginning. Candidates then faced combat survival training that taught them to operate behind enemy lines for extended periods without support. The medical training that followed was the most challenging aspect of the entire program. Pararescue candidates were required to master advanced trauma care procedures that exceeded civilian emergency medical training, learning to treat combat injuries under conditions that would overwhelm hospital emergency rooms. They had to demonstrate competence in advanced airway management, emergency surgery procedures, and trauma stabilization techniques that could keep critically injured personnel alive during extended evacuations. But the most demanding phase of pararescue training was the combat mission phase, where candidates had to prove they could integrate all their specialized skills, medical care, survival, swimming, climbing, and parachuting, into coherent rescue operations under simulated combat conditions that replicated the most challenging scenarios they might encounter in actual operations. Only about 8% of candidates who began pararescue training ever completed the program, and those who did represented the most elite rescue specialists in the world. They were warriors who could operate in any environment, treat any injury, and extract personnel from situations that conventional military forces considered impossible. Which is why the assignment of Technical Sergeant Amanda Cross to the 24th Special Operations Wing's Pararescue Squadron had created such controversy among the airmen who considered themselves the most elite warriors in the United States Air Force. Not because of her qualifications, her training records were flawless, but because she looked more like a supermodel than a lifesaver. At 25 years old, Amanda possessed the kind of breathtaking beauty that seemed incompatible with the brutal world of combat rescue operations. With platinum blonde hair that caught the light like spun gold, bright blue eyes that seemed too innocent for the calculated violence that rescue missions often required, and features so perfectly sculpted they belonged on magazine covers rather than in combat zones, she appeared to be everything that elite pararescuemen were not supposed to be. Her physical appearance was so striking that it seemed impossible she could have endured the physical punishment that pararescue training demanded. The program was designed to break candidates through extreme physical conditioning, underwater harassment that tested psychological limits, and survival training that pushed human endurance beyond normal parameters. How could someone who looked like she belonged in fashion magazines have survived training that eliminated 90% of male candidates? The reaction from her new squadron had been predictably skeptical, though masked behind the professional courtesy that military protocol demanded. To them, Amanda represented the inevitable result of military policies that prioritized diversity over operational effectiveness. They saw a beautiful woman who had obviously received preferential treatment throughout the grueling pararescue training pipeline, someone whose presence would compromise their mission effectiveness when lives depended on absolute competence under impossible conditions. Master Sergeant Jake Reaper Morrison, the squadron's most experienced pararescueman with over 200 combat rescue missions across 4 deployments, had made his position clear during the informal briefing where Amanda's assignment was announced. "Gentlemen," he had said with the kind of dark humor that allowed military professionals to express serious concerns, "looks like we're getting our first poster girl. Hope she can perform as well as she photographs, because when airmen are dying behind enemy lines, pretty don't save lives." Morrison's skepticism was based on decades of experience that had taught him what real pararescue capabilities looked like. He had seen candidates who appeared physically capable fail under the psychological pressure of treating critically injured personnel, and he had witnessed technically competent medics freeze when faced with the moral complexity of making life and death decisions under enemy fire. To Morrison, Amanda's beauty suggested someone who had never experienced the kind of physical and psychological trauma that forged ordinary airmen into warriors capable of saving lives under conditions that would break civilian medical professionals. Her perfect features implied protection from the harsh realities that transformed military trainees into combat-ready specialists. Staff Sergeant Venom Rodriguez, the squadron's second most experienced pararescueman with over 150 rescue missions, had been even more direct in expressing his concerns. "Look," he had said during the squad meeting that followed Amanda's introduction, "pararescue isn't about looking good in uniform or meeting diversity quotas. When you're treating sucking chest wounds while taking enemy fire, physical appearance doesn't matter, competence does. And I need to know that everyone on this team has survived the same hell that made the rest of us capable of saving lives under impossible conditions." Rodriguez's sentiment reflected the life or death stakes that characterized pararescue operations. These weren't peacetime exercises or public relations opportunities, they were missions where single mistakes meant not just the death of the pararescueman but the loss of the aircrew members whose lives depended on successful rescue under combat conditions that would overwhelm ordinary medical personnel. The fundamental challenge facing Amanda was proving that her beauty didn't represent weakness or preferential treatment, but was simply irrelevant to capabilities that had been forged through the same brutal training that had created every other member of the squadron. But her squadron mates' assumptions ran so deep that they interpreted everything about her through the lens of their prejudices. When Amanda performed routine equipment checks with professional competence, they attributed her knowledge to memorization rather than understanding. When she demonstrated proficiency in medical procedures during training exercises, they assumed her skills were adequate for controlled conditions but would prove inadequate under combat stress. When she showed no signs of intimidation by their skepticism, they interpreted her confidence as naive arrogance rather than professional self-assurance based on proven capabilities. What they had failed to investigate was Amanda's actual background and the extraordinary circumstances that had led to her assignment to one of the Air Force's most elite units. Her personnel file told a story that would have shocked them if they had bothered to read beyond her photograph and basic service information. Amanda Cross wasn't a diversity experiment or a public relations gesture. She was the honor graduate of her pararescue training class, having completed the most demanding rescue specialist program in the world with performance scores that broke records established over decades of military training. But her achievements went far beyond exceptional performance in standard training. She had been selected for advanced programs that most pararescuemen never knew existed. During her medical training phase, Amanda had demonstrated aptitude that exceeded normal pararescue requirements, leading to her selection for classified programs that developed trauma care capabilities beyond conventional military medicine. These programs were designed to create specialists who could handle medical scenarios that would overwhelm standard rescue protocols, using advanced techniques and equipment that pushed the boundaries of field medicine. Her underwater training had revealed swimming and diving capabilities that exceeded standard requirements, resulting in additional specialized training in maritime rescue operations that most pararescuemen never received. Her survival training scores had been so exceptional that she was selected for advanced programs that taught resistance to interrogation and survival in hostile environments for extended periods. But Amanda's most remarkable achievement during training hadn't been individual excellence in specific areas, it had been her ability to integrate all aspects of pararescue specialization into coherent operational capability that exceeded what conventional training produced. Her instructors had recognized someone whose natural aptitudes and mental toughness suggested potential for missions that required capabilities beyond normal pararescue parameters. Her call sign wasn't based on appearance or personality, as was traditional in military aviation units. Angel had been earned during a training exercise that had become legendary among the classified circles of special operations, where Amanda had successfully executed a complex medical evacuation under simulated combat conditions that required skills exceeding anything taught in standard pararescue training. The exercise had been designed to test rescue capabilities under impossible circumstances, with multiple casualties requiring immediate medical intervention while under simulated enemy fire in terrain that made conventional evacuation impossible. Most candidates were expected to save some casualties while losing others to the overwhelming tactical and medical challenges that the scenario presented. Amanda had not only saved all simulated casualties but had developed innovative medical techniques that allowed her to treat injuries that would have been fatal under conventional rescue protocols. Working with limited equipment under extreme time pressure, she had demonstrated trauma care capabilities that impressed even the most experienced special operations medical instructors. More significantly, she had shown tactical awareness and leadership capabilities that allowed her to coordinate complex rescue operations while maintaining situational awareness that exceeded what normal pararescue training produced. Her performance suggested someone whose capabilities extended beyond individual medical competence to include the kind of operational thinking that characterized the most elite special operations personnel. But Amanda's most remarkable achievement wasn't individual rescue performance, it was her development of new combat medical techniques that had revolutionized how the Air Force approached casualty care in hostile environments. Working with advanced medical equipment and trauma procedures that few pararescuemen could master, she had created treatment approaches that allowed individual rescue specialists to save lives that would have been lost under conventional medical protocols. Her innovations in trauma care had been so significant that they were incorporated into advanced training programs for special operations medics, though her role in developing these techniques remained classified. The medical procedures that bore her influence were saving lives throughout the special operations community, but few people knew that they had originated with the beautiful blonde pararescueman that conventional wisdom said didn't belong in elite military units. Her assignment to the 24th Special Operations Wing wasn't gender integration or political correctness, it was operational necessity. The wing's missions in increasingly challenging combat environments required pararescuemen whose medical skills matched the technological sophistication and tactical complexity of contemporary warfare. Amanda's specialized capabilities represented exactly what modern combat rescue operations needed, but her new squadron saw only her appearance and made assumptions that would prove nearly catastrophic when combat tested their prejudices against reality. The first indication that their assumptions might be fundamentally wrong came during Amanda's initial medical proficiency evaluation, a series of trauma care assessments that would determine her fitness for operational deployment. These evaluations were routine for experienced pararescuemen but represented the most challenging medical procedures that military training offered, requiring skills and composure under pressure that separated competent medics from life-saving specialists. The evaluation scenarios were designed to simulate the most challenging medical situations that pararescuemen might encounter in actual operations: multiple trauma victims with life-threatening injuries, limited medical equipment, time pressure that required immediate decisions, and psychological stress designed to test whether candidates could maintain professional competence under conditions that would overwhelm civilian medical personnel. Amanda's medical evaluation was observed by the entire squadron, partly out of professional curiosity but mostly because everyone expected to witness performance that would confirm their assumptions about her preferential treatment. They anticipated seeing adequate but unexceptional medical skills that would prove she didn't belong in their elite community. What they witnessed instead was medical performance that exceeded anything they had seen from new squadron members in their entire military careers. Amanda's trauma care procedures were textbook perfect, but executed with a precision and confidence that suggested years of advanced medical training rather than basic pararescue qualification. Her patient assessment protocols were so sophisticated that they appeared almost automated, demonstrating complete mastery of advanced diagnostic techniques that most pararescuemen developed only after years of operational experience. Her treatment procedures were executed with mechanical precision but adapted to specific injury patterns in ways that suggested deep understanding of trauma medicine rather than mere memorization of standard protocols. "Holy shit," Venom had whispered to his medical partner as they watched Amanda complete a complex trauma procedure that most pararescuemen would have found challenging. "She's working like she's been doing this for decades." But even more impressive than her technical medical skills was her apparent comfort with the psychological pressure of treating critically injured patients under observation. Most new pararescuemen showed visible signs of stress during their medical evaluations, the natural result of demonstrating life-saving capabilities while being judged by specialists whose approval could determine their operational assignments. Amanda appeared completely composed, as if advanced trauma care was routine rather than one of the most demanding skills in military medicine. Her professional demeanor suggested someone who had already proven herself under conditions more challenging than training evaluations, though none of her observers understood what those conditions might have been. Her performance during the medical evaluation forced the squadron to reconsider their assumptions about her background, but their fundamental prejudices remained intact. They attributed her skills to extensive simulation training rather than recognizing that her capabilities suggested actual combat medical experience that exceeded their own. Master Sergeant Morrison's evaluation of Amanda's medical performance revealed the depth of his continued skepticism. Cross demonstrates adequate technical proficiency for basic pararescue medical operations. However, combat effectiveness requires more than textbook trauma care. We'll need to assess her performance under actual operational stress before determining her fitness for combat rescue deployment. The evaluation was professionally dismissive, suggesting that Amanda's exceptional medical skills were merely adequate while implying that real combat would expose her limitations. Morrison was maintaining his position that she was a diversity hire whose apparent capabilities would prove inadequate when tested by actual rescue operations under enemy fire. His assessment reflected a fundamental misunderstanding of what he had witnessed. Amanda's medical performance hadn't been adequate, it had been extraordinary, demonstrating capabilities that exceeded what conventional pararescue training produced. But Morrison's prejudices prevented him from recognizing excellence that didn't conform to his expectations about what elite military personnel should look like. What Morrison and his pararescuemen couldn't have anticipated was that their opportunity to test Amanda's combat rescue capabilities would come far sooner than expected, and under circumstances that would reveal not just her true abilities but the dangerous inadequacy of their own assumptions about modern combat medical care. The 24th Special Operations Wing's deployment to the mountainous regions of Afghanistan had been planned as a routine combat search and rescue operation, providing emergency medical evacuation and personnel recovery for Special Operations Forces conducting counterterrorism missions in terrain that favored enemy operations over conventional military tactics. The region where they were deployed represented some of the most challenging operational environment in the world: high-altitude mountains with extreme weather conditions, limited infrastructure for medical evacuation, and enemy forces that had decades of experience fighting superior military forces using terrain advantages and guerrilla tactics that neutralized technological superiority. But intelligence reports had begun indicating increased enemy activity in the region, suggesting that American forces might encounter more significant resistance than the routine support missions that characterized most pararescue deployments. Advanced surveillance systems had detected weapons movements and personnel concentrations that indicated coordinated enemy planning rather than the sporadic insurgent activities that normally threatened American operations. The intelligence picture suggested that enemy forces were specifically targeting American aviation assets, using advanced surface-to-air missiles and coordinated anti-aircraft tactics that posed unprecedented threats to the helicopters and aircraft that pararescue operations depended on. This meant that rescue missions would face not just the normal challenges of treating casualties under combat conditions, but the additional complexity of operating in environments where their own aircraft were primary targets for sophisticated enemy weapons systems. Colonel Patricia Hayes, the wing commander, had briefed the pararescue squadron on the evolving threat environment with the kind of professional concern that indicated serious operational challenges. Intelligence suggests we may be facing organized resistance capable of threatening our rescue operations, she had announced during the classified briefing that outlined their mission parameters. Enemy forces appear to have developed specific tactics for engaging American rescue assets, including advanced surface-to-air missiles and coordinated ground fire designed to shoot down our helicopters during medical evacuation operations. This represents a fundamental change in the threat environment that will require modified operational approaches. The briefing had been sobering for everyone involved, but it represented exactly the kind of operational challenge that pararescuemen had trained their entire careers to handle. These were specialists whose skills had been developed specifically for high-threat environments where American personnel recovery might be contested by sophisticated adversaries operating in favorable terrain. Colonel Hayes continued her briefing with specific tactical guidance that reflected the complexity of the operational environment they would be entering. All rescue operations will require enhanced security measures, with the assumption that enemy forces will specifically target our aircraft and medical personnel. Pararescuemen should be prepared for scenarios where conventional evacuation procedures may not be possible, requiring extended medical care under hostile conditions. For Amanda, the briefing represented her first opportunity to demonstrate that her assignment to the squadron wasn't political correctness but operational necessity. She understood that combat would either validate her presence among the Air Force's elite rescue specialists or confirm her squadron mates' assumptions that she didn't belong in their life-saving community. But the complexity of the operational environment meant that everyone's capabilities would be tested beyond normal pararescue parameters. The combination of challenging terrain, sophisticated enemy threats, and potential for extended medical treatment under combat conditions would require performance that exceeded what conventional training provided. The test came during what should have been a routine personnel recovery mission when an AC-130 gunship was shot down by enemy surface-to-air missiles during a close air support mission, leaving 12 aircrew members stranded in hostile territory with multiple casualties requiring immediate medical evacuation under conditions that would challenge every aspect of pararescue training and operational capability. The AC-130 had been providing fire support for Special Operations Forces conducting a high-value target mission when it was engaged by multiple enemy missile systems that had been positioned specifically to target American aircraft. The gunship had been hit by at least 2 missiles, causing catastrophic damage that forced an emergency landing in terrain controlled by enemy forces. Initial radio contact with the aircrew had established that there were survivors, but multiple personnel were seriously injured and enemy forces were already moving toward the crash site. The tactical situation was complicated by the fact that the crash had occurred in mountainous terrain that limited helicopter access, while enemy air defenses remained active and posed ongoing threats to rescue aircraft. Reaper, we have a downed AC-130 with 12 souls on board. Multiple casualties reported, enemy forces converging on crash site. Immediate medical evacuation required, came the urgent radio call from the Rescue Coordination Center that managed combat search and rescue operations throughout the theater. The radio call contained information that revealed the full complexity of the rescue mission: 12 aircrew members requiring evacuation, multiple casualties with unknown injury severity, enemy forces actively moving to capture or kill survivors, and ongoing air defense threats that made helicopter operations extremely dangerous. Master Sergeant Morrison's response was immediate and professional: Roger, control. Launching immediate personnel recovery. Will establish medical treatment area and coordinate evacuation of all survivors. But Morrison understood that this mission represented the most challenging rescue scenario pararescuemen could face: multiple casualties requiring advanced trauma care while operating in hostile territory under enemy fire, with the additional complexity of ongoing air defense threats that could prevent helicopter evacuation even if they succeeded in reaching the crash site. The mission had evolved from routine support to the most demanding test of pararescue capabilities, requiring not just medical competence but tactical innovation that could overcome enemy advantages in terrain, numbers, and defensive positioning. Morrison's tactical plan was conventionally sound, based on years of experience that emphasized rapid insertion, efficient medical triage, and coordinated evacuation that minimized exposure to enemy action. His approach would save as many lives as possible using established protocols that had proven effective in similar scenarios. Cross, you'll provide medical support while Rodriguez and I establish the landing zone and coordinate security. Follow standard triage protocols and prepare casualties for evacuation, Morrison instructed, assigning Amanda to a supporting role that reflected his continued assumptions about her combat readiness. The assignment was tactically reasonable but revealed Morrison's continued reluctance to rely on Amanda for anything beyond basic medical support. He was maintaining operational control while relegating her to subsidiary functions that wouldn't test her capabilities under the most demanding conditions. Amanda acknowledged the tactical assignment while privately recognizing that Morrison's conservative approach, while safe, might not be adequate for 12 casualties with unknown injuries requiring medical treatment under combat conditions that could prevent conventional evacuation procedures. Her own training in classified rescue programs had exposed her to medical scenarios that pushed beyond conventional pararescue doctrine, situations where overwhelming casualty loads and hostile tactical environments required innovative approaches that violated standard protocols but proved effective in saving lives that would be lost to conventional treatment. Roger, Reaper. Providing medical support, she replied, while quietly preparing advanced medical equipment and trauma procedures that few pararescuemen knew how to employ but which her specialized training had taught her to use in exactly these kinds of complex rescue scenarios. The helicopter insertion to the crash site revealed the full extent of the tactical and medical challenges facing the pararescue team. The AC-130 had gone down in mountainous terrain that made conventional evacuation extremely difficult, and early reports indicated that several aircrew members had sustained injuries that would require immediate advanced trauma care to prevent death from blood loss and shock. The tactical situation was even more challenging than the medical requirements. Enemy forces were already moving toward the crash site in organized formations that suggested coordinated planning rather than opportunistic attacks. Intelligence indicated that multiple enemy squads were converging on the area, creating a combat environment where the pararescuemen would need to provide life-saving medical care while under enemy fire from multiple directions. The crash site itself presented additional complications. The AC-130 had come down on a steep mountainside that made helicopter landing impossible, requiring the pararescue team to fast rope into terrain that favored enemy defensive operations while limiting their own tactical mobility. Morrison's initial assessment of the situation confirmed the complexity of the tactical challenge they were facing. Control, this is Reaper. We have visual on the crash site. Aircraft appears to be total loss, with casualties scattered across difficult terrain. Enemy forces visible at multiple locations, estimated company strength opposition. This is going to be a long operation. The radio call revealed that they were facing not just a medical evacuation but a tactical rescue under conditions that exceeded normal pararescue parameters. A company strength enemy force represented over 100 opponents, creating odds that would challenge conventional military units even without the additional complexity of treating casualties and coordinating evacuation. But Morrison and his team were committed to the fundamental pararescue principle that no mission was impossible if American personnel needed rescue. The motto that others may live represented not just professional dedication but personal commitment to risk everything necessary to save fellow service members. The insertion to the crash site was conducted under enemy fire that began immediately when the helicopter appeared over the target area. Morrison's team fast roped to the ground while taking small arms fire that demonstrated enemy preparedness and tactical positioning that suggested they had been waiting for American rescue operations. Taking fire from multiple positions. Enemy forces well positioned and organized. Morrison called as the team moved toward the crashed aircraft while under fire that confirmed intelligence assessments about enemy capabilities and intentions. But reaching the crash site revealed the full extent of the medical challenges that would test every aspect of pararescue training and operational capability. The AC-130's 12-man crew had survived the crash, but multiple personnel had sustained serious injuries that required immediate medical intervention to prevent death from trauma that was beyond basic first aid. Morrison's response was tactically sound but revealed the limitations of conventional pararescue approaches when facing complex medical scenarios under combat stress. His triage system prioritized casualties based on survivability assessments that worked well for routine evacuations but might not be adequate for the kind of multiple trauma cases that required innovative treatment approaches. Cross, we have 12 casualties with various injuries. Follow standard triage, treat the salvageable, comfort the dying, ignore the walking wounded, Morrison instructed, implementing medical protocols that had proven effective in conventional scenarios but might not be optimal for the specific trauma patterns they were encountering. Amanda's initial assessment of the casualties revealed injury patterns that suggested Morrison's conventional approach might result in preventable deaths. Several aircrew members had sustained complex trauma that required immediate advanced medical intervention using techniques that exceeded standard pararescue training but were well within her specialized capabilities. The injuries she observed included multiple penetrating wounds from aircraft debris, severe burns from post-crash fires, crushing injuries from impact trauma, and complex fractures that could result in life-threatening complications if not treated with advanced procedures that pushed beyond conventional field medicine. Reaper, I'm seeing trauma patterns that might benefit from modified treatment protocols. Several casualties have injuries that could be saved with advanced procedures, Amanda called, suggesting approaches that drew on her classified medical training. Morrison's response revealed his continued skepticism about Amanda's medical judgment under combat pressure. Cross, stick to established protocols. We don't have time for experimental procedures when we're taking enemy fire. The exchange represented a fundamental difference in medical philosophy. Morrison's approach was based on proven pararescue doctrine that prioritized efficiency and safety over innovation, while Amanda's training had taught her to recognize situations where conventional protocols might not be adequate for the specific medical challenges they were facing. But Amanda had sworn an oath to save lives regardless of personal consequences, and she could see that several aircrew members would die from treatable injuries if she followed conventional treatment protocols instead of implementing the advanced trauma procedures that her specialized training had prepared her to use. Reaper, I'm implementing advanced trauma protocols on the critically injured. Conventional treatment won't save these casualties, Amanda announced, beginning medical procedures that violated standard pararescue doctrine but represented the cutting-edge trauma care that could mean the difference between life and death for severely injured personnel. What followed would become legendary in pararescue history, not just for Amanda's individual medical performance but for the way she transformed combat trauma care while revealing what her specialized training actually represented. Working with advanced medical equipment and trauma procedures that exceeded conventional pararescue capabilities, Amanda began treating multiple critically injured aircrew members using techniques that had been developed specifically for combat medical scenarios that overwhelmed standard treatment protocols. Her approach to treating severe trauma under combat conditions drew on every aspect of her classified medical training, implementing procedures that allowed her to stabilize casualties who would have died under conventional treatment while maintaining the tactical awareness necessary to continue operations under enemy fire. The first casualty she treated was Sergeant Mike Torch Patterson, the AC-130's flight engineer, who had sustained multiple shrapnel wounds and severe burns that would have been fatal under standard field treatment protocols. Using advanced trauma procedures that exceeded conventional pararescue training, Amanda began treatment that violated standard medical doctrine but represented the most effective approach for his specific injury pattern. Venom, I need you to maintain security while I work on these critical casualties. I'm using advanced procedures that require concentration but will save lives that conventional treatment would lose, Amanda called as she began implementing trauma care that exceeded anything her squadron mates had ever witnessed. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez found himself providing security for medical procedures that challenged everything he thought he knew about combat trauma care. Amanda was performing operations that seemed impossible under combat conditions, using techniques and equipment that violated conventional pararescue doctrine but were saving lives that would have been lost to standard treatment approaches. Her medical technique was unlike anything Rodriguez had seen in over 6 years of pararescue operations. She was treating complex trauma with precision and innovation that suggested medical training far beyond what standard pararescue school provided, using equipment and procedures that he didn't recognize but were clearly effective in ways that exceeded conventional treatment capabilities. Angel, how are you stabilizing casualties with those injury patterns? I've never seen trauma care like this, Rodriguez called as he watched Amanda treat complex injuries using methods that exceeded his understanding of field medicine. Specialized training, Venom. Medical techniques that aren't taught in standard pararescue school but are effective for exactly these kinds of trauma scenarios, Amanda replied without pausing in her systematic treatment of casualties whose lives depended on advanced medical care that pushed beyond conventional military medicine. Her explanation was accurate but understated the extent of what Rodriguez was witnessing. Amanda wasn't just using advanced techniques, she was demonstrating medical capabilities that redefined what was possible in combat trauma care, treating injuries that would have challenged hospital emergency rooms using field equipment under enemy fire. Her medical performance continued for over 3 hours as she treated 12 aircrew members with injuries ranging from minor lacerations to complex trauma that would have challenged hospital emergency rooms. But what made her performance truly remarkable wasn't just her individual medical skills, it was her ability to coordinate treatment for multiple critical casualties while maintaining tactical awareness under enemy fire. Working with situational awareness that seemed almost supernatural, Amanda managed medical care for the entire casualty load while coordinating with helicopter evacuation assets and providing tactical input that helped Morrison and Rodriguez maintain defensive security around the crash site. Her ability to maintain operational effectiveness while treating multiple casualties under combat stress demonstrated capabilities that exceeded what conventional pararescue training produced. She was functioning as both primary medical officer and tactical coordinator, managing complex rescue operations that required skills beyond what standard military training provided. The casualties she treated included Staff Sergeant Gunnar Williams, who had sustained crushing chest injuries that required immediate intervention to prevent death from internal bleeding, Technical Sergeant Nav Johnson, whose multiple fractures and head trauma demanded advanced neurological assessment and treatment, and Captain Pilot Anderson, the aircraft commander, whose severe burns and respiratory injuries required sophisticated airway management and fluid resuscitation. Each casualty presented unique medical challenges that required individualized treatment approaches, but Amanda maintained systematic care for all 12 personnel while adapting her procedures to specific injury patterns and available resources. Her medical performance was comprehensive and innovative, demonstrating trauma care capabilities that exceeded anything Morrison had witnessed in 15 years of pararescue operations. Control, this is Angel. All 12 casualties stabilized and ready for evacuation. No preventable deaths. Several saves that exceeded conventional treatment capabilities, Amanda called as she completed medical care that had kept every surviving aircrew member alive despite injuries that would have been fatal under standard pararescue protocols. Her radio call was clinically accurate but understated the extent of what she had accomplished. Amanda had not only saved 12 lives under impossible conditions, she had redefined what was possible in combat trauma care, demonstrating medical capabilities that would influence pararescue training for decades to come. Master Sergeant Morrison's response revealed his growing understanding that he had fundamentally misjudged Amanda's capabilities. Angel, I don't know what kind of medical training you received, but you just performed trauma care that exceeded anything I've seen in 15 years of pararescue operations. Morrison's acknowledgement was significant because it represented recognition from someone whose experience and judgment were respected throughout the pararescue community. His assessment carried weight that went beyond personal opinion. It was professional evaluation from a specialist whose expertise was unquestioned. But the mission wasn't complete until all casualties had been evacuated to medical facilities capable of providing definitive treatment. The helicopter evacuation phase of the operation would test not just Amanda's medical skills but her ability to coordinate complex logistics while maintaining patient care during transport under continuing enemy threats. The evacuation helicopters arrived under heavy enemy fire that required suppressive action from escort aircraft, creating a tactical environment where medical personnel had to maintain patient care while aircraft maneuvered to avoid enemy weapons. Amanda's ability to provide medical support during helicopter operations under combat conditions would test skills that few pararescuemen ever developed. During the flight back to base, Amanda continued providing medical care for the most critically injured casualties, monitoring vital signs and adjusting treatment protocols based on patient response to initial intervention. Her medical performance during evacuation demonstrated sustained competence under conditions that would have overwhelmed conventional medical personnel. The helicopter evacuation back to base gave Morrison time to process what he had witnessed, and his conversation with Amanda revealed a complete transformation in his understanding of who she was and what her assignment to their squadron actually represented. "Angel, I owe you an apology," Morrison said as they accompanied the casualties to medical facilities. "I made assumptions about your capabilities based on your appearance rather than investigating your actual background. What kind of medical training prepared you for what you did today?" Morrison's apology was significant because it came from someone who rarely admitted mistakes, particularly regarding professional judgment about personnel capabilities. His willingness to acknowledge error demonstrated recognition that his assumptions had been fundamentally wrong. Amanda's response revealed the humility and professionalism that had characterized her throughout weeks of skepticism from squadron mates who had judged her based on appearance rather than capability. "Reaper, I was trained in classified programs that develop advanced trauma care techniques for scenarios where conventional medical protocols aren't adequate. But today wasn't about proving individual superiority, it was about saving the lives of aircrew members who were depending on our medical skills." Her answer was characteristic of the professionalism that had earned her selection for advanced training programs, but it also revealed the extent to which her specialized capabilities had been misunderstood by colleagues who had made assumptions based on appearance rather than investigating her actual qualifications. The post-mission debriefing became legendary in Air Force pararescue history, not just for Amanda's individual medical performance but for the way it transformed how the entire wing understood modern combat trauma care and the advanced capabilities that contemporary threats required from American rescue specialists. Colonel Hayes conducted the debriefing personally, recognizing that they had witnessed something unprecedented that would influence Air Force pararescue doctrine for years to come. The debriefing was attended not just by squadron personnel but by medical officers from throughout the theater who had heard about Amanda's performance and wanted to understand what had made such exceptional trauma care possible. Technical Sergeant Cross, Colonel Hayes began, "What we observed today represents medical performance that exceeds anything in our operational databases. The 12 aircrew members you treated have been evaluated by hospital medical staff, and their assessment is that several casualties would have died from their injuries if they had received conventional field treatment. Can you explain the training background that made this level of trauma care possible?" Colonel Hayes' assessment was based on formal medical evaluation by hospital trauma specialists who had decades of experience treating combat injuries. Their professional judgment that Amanda's field treatment had prevented multiple deaths carried significant weight because it came from specialists whose expertise was unquestioned. Amanda's answer revealed the extent to which her squadron had misunderstood not just her individual capabilities but the evolution of modern military medicine and the specialized programs that prepared pararescuemen for medical scenarios that exceeded conventional rescue training. "Ma'am, I was selected for classified training programs that develop trauma care approaches for scenarios where pararescuemen might face casualty loads and injury patterns that overwhelm conventional medical protocols. The training simulates exactly the kind of medical challenges we encountered today, using techniques that push medical capabilities beyond standard pararescue parameters." Her explanation provided insight into training programs that most military personnel never knew existed, but which were essential for preparing specialists to handle medical scenarios that exceeded conventional military medicine. Amanda's capabilities represented the evolution of combat medical care to meet challenges that modern warfare presented. Master Sergeant Morrison, who had spent weeks treating Amanda as a diversity hire whose presence endangered his squadron, found himself confronting the reality that she was actually the most qualified medical specialist under his command for the kinds of advanced trauma scenarios that modern combat presented to Air Force rescue operations. "Technical Sergeant," Morrison said with respect he had never shown before, "why wasn't this information included in your personnel file when you were assigned to our squadron?" Morrison's question reflected his growing understanding that he had fundamentally misunderstood Amanda's qualifications and the reason for her assignment to their unit. His assumption that she was a diversity hire had prevented him from recognizing that she represented exactly what their mission requirements needed. Amanda's answer revealed the character and professionalism that had earned her selection for the Air Force's most classified and demanding medical training programs. Master Sergeant, I didn't think my specialized background was relevant unless combat proved it necessary. I came here to be part of the team, not to demonstrate that my medical training was superior to my squadron mates. Her response demonstrated the humility that had characterized her approach throughout her assignment to the squadron. Despite possessing capabilities that exceeded her colleagues' training, she had never sought to establish superiority or demand recognition for her specialized qualifications. But the 24th Special Operations Wing's deployment continued with increasingly challenging rescue missions that would test not just Amanda's individual capabilities but her ability to train other pararescuemen in the advanced techniques that modern combat environments required. 3 weeks after the AC-130 rescue, intelligence reports indicated a significant escalation in enemy activities throughout their operational area. Advanced surveillance had detected coordinated enemy movements that suggested preparation for large-scale attacks against American forces, creating conditions where rescue operations would face unprecedented challenges. All personnel, Colonel Hayes announced during the emergency briefing that followed intelligence updates, were facing indications of coordinated enemy operations designed specifically to target American aviation and rescue assets. Intelligence suggests that enemy forces have developed tactics specifically aimed at shooting down our aircraft and preventing successful rescue operations. The briefing revealed that enemy forces had learned from previous encounters with American rescue capabilities, developing counter-tactics that exploited weaknesses in conventional rescue operations. This meant that future missions would require approaches that exceeded standard pararescue doctrine. Enemy forces appear to have acquired advanced surface-to-air missiles and have developed coordinated ground tactics designed to overwhelm our rescue operations through superior numbers and defensive positioning, Hayes continued. This represents a fundamental change in the operational environment that will require modified approaches to personnel recovery. The intelligence assessment meant that Amanda's specialized training, which had been designed for exactly these kinds of complex operational scenarios, would become essential for squadron effectiveness rather than individual distinction. Her capabilities represented not just personal achievement but operational necessity for missions that exceeded conventional pararescue parameters. Master Sergeant Morrison's assignment of personnel for the next rescue mission reflected his transformed understanding of Amanda's role in squadron operations. Angel, you'll lead the primary rescue team for this operation. Your medical capabilities and tactical judgment have proven essential for the kind of complex scenarios we're now facing. The assignment represented complete reversal from Morrison's initial skepticism about Amanda's qualifications. He was now recognizing her not as a diversity hire requiring supervision but as the most qualified specialist for missions that demanded capabilities beyond conventional training. The mission that would test Amanda's leadership capabilities came when a special operations helicopter was shot down during a high-value target mission, leaving 8 special operations personnel stranded in territory that intelligence indicated was heavily defended by enemy forces specifically trained to prevent American rescue operations. Control, this is Angel. We have a downed special operations aircraft with 8 souls requiring immediate extraction. Intelligence indicates company strength enemy opposition with advanced air defense capabilities. Request permission to implement modified rescue protocols, Amanda called as she assessed the tactical situation that would challenge every aspect of her training and leadership abilities. The rescue mission would require not just individual medical competence but tactical innovation that could overcome enemy advantages designed specifically to defeat American rescue operations. Amanda's approach would need to integrate her specialized medical training with operational leadership that pushed beyond conventional pararescue doctrine. Her tactical plan drew on every aspect of her classified training, but adapted for the specific challenges of leading other pararescuemen whose capabilities were conventional rather than specialized. Her strategy was to use her advanced skills to create tactical opportunities while teaching her team members techniques that would enhance their effectiveness without requiring the years of specialized training that had prepared her for these scenarios. Team, we're facing enemy forces that have trained specifically to defeat American rescue operations. I'll be implementing medical and tactical approaches that aren't part of standard pararescue training, but I'll coordinate our actions so that everyone can contribute using their existing capabilities, Amanda briefed as they approached the target area where 8 special operations personnel were fighting for survival against overwhelming odds. The briefing revealed Amanda's understanding that effective leadership required not just individual excellence but the ability to maximize team effectiveness through coordination and tactical innovation that enhanced rather than replaced existing capabilities. The insertion to the crash site confirmed intelligence assessments about enemy preparedness and tactical sophistication. Enemy forces were positioned in coordinated defensive formations that demonstrated training specifically designed to counter American rescue operations, using terrain advantages and superior numbers to create tactical scenarios that would overwhelm conventional rescue approaches. Amanda's response demonstrated why her specialized training exceeded conventional pararescue capabilities and why her leadership was essential for missions that pushed beyond standard operational parameters. Working with tactical awareness that seemed to anticipate enemy actions, she began implementing rescue approaches that neutralized enemy advantages while creating opportunities for her team to function effectively. Rodriguez, take overwatch position and provide covering fire. Morrison, coordinate with the downed personnel and prepare them for evacuation. I'll handle medical treatment and tactical coordination, Amanda directed, assigning responsibilities that maximized each team member's capabilities while maintaining overall operational control. Her leadership approach was collaborative rather than authoritarian, using her specialized skills to enhance team effectiveness while respecting the experience and competence that her squadron mates brought to the mission. This demonstrated tactical maturity that exceeded individual technical proficiency. The rescue operation that followed became legendary not just for its individual success but for the way Amanda's leadership transformed how the squadron approached complex rescue missions. Working with 8 critically injured special operations personnel while under enemy fire from multiple directions, she demonstrated medical and tactical capabilities that established new standards for pararescue performance. Her medical treatment of the casualties revealed the full extent of her specialized training while demonstrating her ability to teach advanced techniques to other pararescuemen during actual combat operations. Working with Rodriguez and Morrison as medical assistants, she treated complex trauma while providing real-time training that enhanced their capabilities. Morrison, this casualty has traumatic brain injury that requires modified treatment protocols. I'll show you techniques for managing increased intracranial pressure using field equipment, Amanda explained while treating Technical Sergeant Shooter Davis, whose head trauma would have been fatal under conventional treatment but was stabilized using advanced procedures. Her ability to provide medical training during combat operations demonstrated teaching capabilities that exceeded individual technical competence. She was transforming not just immediate patient care but the long-term capabilities of her entire team. The 8 special operations casualties she treated included some of the most complex trauma scenarios that pararescue operations could encounter: multiple penetrating wounds, severe burns, crushing injuries, and neurological trauma that required immediate advanced intervention to prevent death or permanent disability. Each casualty received individualized treatment that exceeded conventional pararescue protocols while Amanda simultaneously coordinated tactical operations and provided training for her team members. Her performance was comprehensive and educational, demonstrating capabilities that would influence not just immediate mission success but future operational effectiveness. Control, this is Angel. All 8 casualties stabilized and ready for evacuation. No preventable deaths, advanced trauma care successful under hostile conditions. Team performance exceeded standard parameters through integrated training approach, Amanda reported as she completed the most complex rescue operation in squadron history. Her radio call was professionally accurate but understated the extent of what the mission had accomplished. Amanda had not only saved 8 lives under impossible conditions, she had demonstrated leadership capabilities that transformed team effectiveness while establishing new approaches to combat rescue operations. The post-mission analysis revealed that Amanda's leadership had created tactical and medical innovations that would be incorporated into pararescue training programs throughout the Air Force. Her ability to enhance team capabilities while maintaining individual excellence represented exactly what modern combat environments required from military specialists. 6 months later, Technical Sergeant Amanda Angel Cross was promoted to Staff Sergeant and assigned to develop training programs that would prepare the next generation of pararescuemen for the kinds of advanced scenarios that contemporary warfare presented. Her combat performance had not only saved numerous lives but had proven that specialized medical training was essential for maintaining American rescue capabilities in an increasingly challenging operational environment. But perhaps more significantly, Amanda had established new approaches to military leadership that maximized team effectiveness through collaborative enhancement rather than individual dominance. Her methods became standard training for advanced military leadership programs, demonstrating how technical excellence could be transformed into organizational capability. The beautiful blonde airwoman who had been dismissed as too delicate for elite rescue operations had redefined what was possible in combat trauma care while proving that the most dangerous assumptions were those based on appearance rather than capabilities. Her story became required study in Air Force leadership courses, demonstrating how prejudice and stereotyping could compromise operational readiness in ways that endangered lives and missions. But perhaps most importantly, Amanda's success established new standards for evaluating pararescue capabilities based on performance rather than preconceptions, ensuring that future generations of rescue specialists would be judged by their skills rather than their appearance or conformity to traditional expectations. The stunning blonde who looked more like a supermodel than a warrior had reminded everyone that true rescue effectiveness comes not from matching stereotypes but from possessing the medical skills and tactical judgment necessary to save lives when conventional approaches aren't adequate for the challenges that modern warfare presents to those brave enough to serve their country in the most demanding profession the military has to offer. Her legacy extended beyond individual achievement to include transformation of how the Air Force approached combat rescue operations, medical training, and leadership development. Amanda's innovations in trauma care, tactical coordination, and team enhancement became standard elements of advanced pararescue training, ensuring that her contributions would continue saving lives for decades to come. What they didn't know about Technical Sergeant Amanda Angel Cross could have filled multiple classified medical manuals, but what everyone learned was that some pararescuemen earn their call signs not through appearance or personality but through medical performance and leadership capability that redefines what's possible when skills, training, and life-saving dedication exceed conventional expectations. The gorgeous young woman they had assumed was a diversity hire had proven that the most beautiful thing about a pararescue specialist isn't conformity to expectations but the ability to save lives and accomplish missions when conventional approaches aren't adequate for the challenges that modern warfare presents to those who dedicate their lives to ensuring that others may live.